Hi, I'm Mary Ellen Wands, founder and program director emeritus of AIM, the Authentic Institute of Montessori. And it is my honor and privilege to welcome our guest today, Pamela Green. Pamela is a longtime Montessorian, the owner of a school that she'll tell you more about. And the most amazing thing is that she has assisted at so many live births. And so the topic we're going to be talking about today is Montessori and the process of birth. So Pamela, tell us about your school or your
Oh,
like to
well,
tell.
yeah, first, Mary Ellen, it's so good to see you. And I just want to thank you all for having me be with you for the midweek stream. Um, what I do, as you say, I've been in Montessori since about 1981, and then I started a school called Ananda Montessori in 2013, which is a place where it's Montessori parent, infant, and child. So the adults, whether they're the parents or the grandparents or other caregivers, they come to class with the child. And we begin in pregnancy and we go up through, at this point, age 5, although we're in a process of expansion. And well, we're in a creative process right now with that. So the adults come, they're in a, I call it a living practice of Montessori because they are there as the child is there, and I'm facilitating and guiding them as much as I am the child. So
So
that's
when you say you're expanding, you mean by uh, older children or just a bigger place?
expanding. Well, um, I'm trained in Montessori up through upper elementary,
Uh-huh.
and so when I had my larger school, I grew it from toddler up through 8th grade,
Wow.
and I taught all those levels, and I was head of school. I mean, I over time I was doing different things like all of us tend to do. But right now we want to add because I do have like the 3 to 6 class at Ananda, which we call parent and child. From teaching a 3 to 6 class for over 20 years in a um, a traditional classroom, it is just like that, but there are adults present as well. What we want to do is add on a 3 to 6 classroom where it would be without the adults, and then we would also like to expand into elementary and have that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been, my starting in Montessori in 1981, it really was on the path of aligned with when I became initiated. I feel same in Montessori with birth, and the midwife that I work with right now, we've been attending births together for 40 years, and uh, our kids grew up together, all those things. So I attended my first birth in 1986, and then and Montessori has always been a part of it because I was teaching Montessori, and then as I've continued to understand more about in the readings by Marie Montessori and what her intentions were for the assistance to infancy, all those things. It's just part of the practice that I live as a Montessorian.
That is so exciting. I started out as an early childhood teacher and got my training from AMI in 1971. And then I went on to get my elementary in Bergamo, Italy in 74, 75. But then I had a really wonderful opportunity. I believe it was in 77. Silvana Montanaro, who really founded the infant toddler training programs around the world, came to Tarrytown, New York, and did a 2-week workshop. And I was able to attend that with her. And, my passion for those, prenatal and the first 3 years has been unabated all these years. And I wrote my master's thesis on the everything that Montessori had written about the prenatal to age 3, and it was faster than I'd expected. What she really said and commented about, and the school that I was head of for 25 years, we started our infant toddler classrooms, and based on what I'd learned from Montanaro, and then eventually some people went and got the AMS training. And we also had courses for expectant moms, and to try to help them with the process. So my heart is so close to what you're doing, and right now our training course, Age of Montessori, which we rebranded as Authentic Institute of Montessori, started out with 3 to 6, and then we realized that there were many people who wanted the elementary training, and I could do that. But then it came time for people wanting infant toddler, and then we hired a trained teacher at that level, and then I was able to assist her and do the philosophy and psychology when we created our course. And then I went with her to Hanoi, Vietnam, earlier last year, and it's just the stages of development, I think, is the concept that always intrigues me the most. And Montessori, when you understand Montessori, you can apply it to every stage because it's help to life, right? And so that's what makes it so united in all of our approaches.
Yes. I imagine that was just an amazing time with Silvana Montanaro.
Yes.
I envy you.
It was amazing. And I stayed in touch with her after that and went to some other trainings, but that was the only time that she did anything outside of, then she went to Denver and started a formal course that was based on what she taught us. And I had all those notes with me, and it really changed my life,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, it's I feel, and I think that you feel the same way, that the prenatal life and labor and birth and the first 40 days are part of what we offer, or what is essential to know more about that. I mean, it's no matter if we have been pregnant before or we've given birth, the universal connection with all of us is that we were in that first prepared environment within our mother. So we have that. I sometimes think about that when I'm driving to a birth. I'll think about, just the legacy of all women and babies, and that it's a universal thing, as many aspects of Montessori that she wrote about.
Well, we're both mothers, so we've been through it. In addition to being born ourselves, we've both born children. And I actually, outside of the birth of my 3 children, I only attended one live birth, and a good friend of mine invited several of her friends to come and be there. And, it was a wonderful experience. And then her little son is now my son's best friend, and they're both in their 40s. So it was a long time ago.
Yeah, I'm to the point now where, in fact, I have someone who's going to be enrolling at Ananda, and I attended all of his mother's 3 births, and then I taught all those children at my school, and now he's enrolling his children at Ananda. So I'm, you begin to feel either very wise or kind of old after a while, and then we're attending births where we'll be like, so I attended your birth, and now I'm attending your child's birth, and that just that I mean, it's quite beautiful, and it's very humbling, the work that we do.
Yes, it is humbling. And that brings to mind an experience that I had of one of the children in the first classroom I ever taught back in 1972. Eventually, I knew her as she grew up. Um, then I had her children in my school when I was teaching elementary, and then her mother took the
Mhm.
Montessori training from us. So I had some photographs of us of all three generations, and it was, you know,
Oh,
not exactly in the order you'd expect, but it was that I think what we're talking about is this deep bonding with
yeah,
our students, whether we're there for their birth or as we just watch them grow and know their families. It's such a precious part of what we do, isn't it?
it is. It's and I've only taught in Montessori and in another alternative school, so I don't have. I mean, that's just my life experience. But what I noticed so much in the children over the all these years is that, and with the parents and everything, the sense of community, at least for me, is so essential. And at Ananda with the adults, I observe and I see how their social cohesion comes together, and the children are coming together, and then they form one together again. So
Yes.
it's as if there's one organism, flowing. But I, I that bond between ourselves as guides and observing and seeing the child revealing themselves, and having that amazing opportunity to witness that, and seeing, and then it's that there's that reflective exchange between the child and the guide, where we know them, we see them, and if we're willing to be seen, they see us. And to me, that enters into the spiritual preparation of the adult.
There's a wonderful statement that I don't have it in front of me, so I won't be able to repeat it, but it's in Spontaneous Activity in Education. And Montessori talks about just that moment when the child sees you. You know,
Mm.
you may have been giving him lessons and you've been in the classroom with him, but sometimes she says he connects to your soul. He sees you
Mhm.
and connects to your soul, and it's such a precious moment. I do a reading of it in my online course because I think it's such it takes it to another level. This
Mhm.
look at other educators and they're talking about what you do as a teacher and this, that, and the other. It's like Montessori takes things to a completely different um, level of thinking and consciousness, and it has to do with that bond between individuals. And that
Mhm.
you said community, I always think of that word, come into unity, and that's really what our communities are, aren't they?
They are. And for birth, at least the way that I practice, and with the person that I work with, we have, at least in my experience, our intention is to, because we're with them all prenatally, and we're with them, we get to know them very deeply, and then there's that process of trust that just evolves, and then we're with them through the labor and the birth. But there is that same moment that I feel when I being seen by the child, being seen by that woman, in the moments that are so profound, and where she is revealing herself. She's revealing herself.
So tell me more about how you see um, the birth process being aligned with the Montessori process.
Well, I mean, there are quotes by Maria Montessori, that the one I can't think of all the words to it right now, but it's the one where she's talking about. I think it's from the London lectures, where she talks about the way that we prepare ourselves to receive the child. And I love that quote, and I think of it. Sometimes I'll read it if I'm not having to leave really quickly. I'll read it to remind myself of the intention that myself and the midwife that I work with, we both hold around, that we are there as guests. We are there as guests, and we are there to bring our experience, but it is, we spend most of the time really observing and giving space, because the process is not ours, will never be ours. It is the mothers and the babies first, and they are the center. And then if there's a co-parent, that person as well. So the honoring of that process always reminds me of the same honoring that I try to hold with children as well.
Well,
You know,
it's like the prepared environment at the emotional level. And I sometimes talk about it in my training courses, ambiance, that we create this, not only physically prepare the environment, but what we bring to it, and our love for every detail, and our love for the, obviously, the children, but the preparation that's really part of our own spiritual process, as you mentioned, but it's for and on behalf of those individuals who are coming to be.
mm-hmm. And there's we don't, there's the unknown, that when we see a child, the child is unknown to us. And the same wonder and curiosity we hold with each birth that we're at. What will happen? I mean, it's an unknown. Birth is an unknown. We can bring ourselves with as much experience as we have, and that humility that that we hold, and being open to the same as in with the child. We commit to, when we enter in, to not disturb. We enter into not disturb, and we enter in with discernment around when is this really needed, and we are respectful of what is happening. And I'll give you an example. We just got done with 8 births in a month and a half, and we were at a birth. This happens often, but this birth was very striking. And this woman was in labor, and we were both sitting here, and she was here. And the way that we don't disturb the child by even looking at them, we hold that naturally within us. So we sat for hours, and this woman sat and was laboring, and we did not look at her.
Wow.
We did not look at her. And you could just feel that, and she had her eyes closed for a lot of it. But we talked about it later, and how profound that was. And we knew in ourselves that if we did anything, it could destroy, in a way, So that same, again, discernment around what to do, and using our inner guidance,
Mm-hmm.
and then to let, also the releasing that we talk about in Montessori, of we may have all these ideas about what might happen with a lesson or whatever, and then we also release it. Because just as with the child, with the woman in labor, if they're given freedom, and we don't give them freedom, we don't give them that. But if they are moving freely, and we are there to be servants, that's what we're called, are the servants, then we follow, literally follow around, and where she births, she births.
Wow.
And to me, that is another connection of
Mhm.
bringing ourselves and being. And the person that I work with, she's not Montessori trained, but she is a Montessorian. And the more that she learns about Montessori, she just loves it so much, and she's connecting more and more to it. And the other thing I'll say is also with, like, when the newborn exam happens, we wait until there's readiness in the child for that to happen. So we leave, the family are on their own, and then we'll go and we'll see if this newborn has readiness for that to happen.
Wow.
Rather than just going in, now it's time for this, and we weigh the child with actually a fish scale, but we do a full exam, and we'll even ask for make connection with the child, wait until their eyes are with us, and talk with them, and then talk about what we're doing.
Wow.
Talk about each step that we're doing, and then if we feel resistance, we will stop. We'll just kind of wait, hold our hands back for a moment. So there's no. And I was telling her the other day. I said, if let's if to me it's all around how we hold our intention around something, because we could be doing the exact same thing in the classroom. Like, we're going to go and do something, but it's our how we move in ourself that is the most essential.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was telling her that like listening to the hard tones on the infant, when I was in the hospital for so many years, that would happen very forcefully and without, connecting with the child, and so what was done to the child. And the same exact thing is happening that we do, but it's with connection with the child.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another thing that connects to me with it.
I wish you would have been there when my children were born, because I had a midwife, but I ended up having to go to the hospital and have C-section. And then the other two, they just insisted on C-sections, even though I said, well, okay, but I won't tell you that I'm in labor until I'm in hard labor, and then I will
Mm-hmm.
go in I wanted the time of birth to be according to the child cycles, not the doctor's convenience or mine. And I
Yeah.
think my recollection though is that the babies were just picked up and taken, and these tests, the APGAR was all done to them without any reference to that individual child being a human. It was just
Mm-hmm.
initially checked out. It was not respectful, and I think when you boil Montessori down, a lot of it, what you're talking about and what I'm talking about, comes to just this deep respect we have, and we're going to observe, and we're going to there's humility, and a humility that you don't need to do something unless it's necessary, not on your behalf but on theirs.
Yes. Whose needs are being met,
Yeah.
and that comes to faith, and that comes to patience, and it comes to trust, and it comes to letting go of our agenda, whatever it is, and all those things.
Trust is such a key, because I see some of the teachers that are new in training, they'll just have a list of the lessons that they think they need to be giving, and that's not it. I'm
No.
sorry, that's not it. It's responsiveness to the children, and that's something that I think patience is such an important virtue, that you have to have patience with yourself and with the process of observing and finding and attuning to what's really going on, not just
Mhm.
mentally relaying it. Well, this is what's supposed to happen. It's just as you said, it's the inner guide. It's using a different part of yourself.
Yeah, I sometimes call that, because I do a course called Montessori Births, and I sometimes call that, and along with other, when I'm working, like whole body listening. So the integration of really using our senses, using our all of our body in a grounded state to listen, so that it's not just with our ears, but it's a whole body sensing and our feeling and our thoughts and all of that before we go ahead and do something.
Well, that's a beautiful concept.
Yeah, I find it to be really helpful for me because, sometimes I'll feel that it'll just creep in. I have to do something, and then that do is a red flag to me. Where's that coming from?
Okay.
So take some breaths, just pause and see a little bit, and it could be something that is would be helpful, but the way that I am in within myself is the key thing.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
My youngest daughter, I think what I guess I'm saying is that some people have this more naturally than others. And my youngest daughter would walk into the room and all she'd do is look at my face and say, Mommy, how are you? She could always tell if something
Yeah.
was not quite right. And my other daughter would be oblivious, but, and my son was usually not even around. But my youngest was always like that. And she still is.
Mm-hmm.
And she, sometimes called herself, she was a super sensor and most uncomfortably so.
Yeah, and when we all have that capacity,
Yeah.
we all have it, and I think that that's one thing that, at least when I like to work a lot experientially with people, and I've been doing monthly parent groups since 1989,
Yeah.
and we do that at Ananda and other classes, but a lot of experiential processes to bring. I mean, no one can bring another person more deeply into themselves. It's a unique process, but to have that space for that to happen
Mm-hmm.
is rare, I feel, and so that's another aspect, at least from my understanding, my readings from Marie Montessori and the preparation of the spirit, that we prepare. And that's what both my who I work with to attend births, we both prepare deeply before we walk into the door on those levels.
I had the first boss I had when I started working at a Montessori school. She talked about that process with me. And she said, okay, when you get to the classroom, she said, I want you to stand in front of the door and just take off your stuff and leave it. She said, you have no right to take that in with the children. And I thought, what a wise woman. And then she would laugh and say, don't worry, it'll be there when you come back. But a lot of times it wouldn't be because you enjoy so much this communion with the children that the other things that might have been bothering you just are pale in significance. They're just not important anymore. And but that really helped me begin
Mm-hmm.
to understand the process because I was in my early 20s and I'm brand new in my classroom, never had any experience. When I took my AMI training, there was no real internship. You got to go and observe in a school and maybe work for a week. But it wasn't the same as walking in and okay, this is your classroom, and having to figure out who the children were, what they needed, and how to deliver
Mm-hmm.
those lessons in a way that they can be receptive to. And you know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going back to another thought when you were talking about how each child is an unknown. I just remember holding my babies in my arms and looking into their eyes and realizing I don't know who you are yet. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's such an adventure when a child comes into the world, whether you have watched it be born, or whether it's yours, or whether it's a child that enters your classroom, or for me, when an adult takes our training, I want to get to know them and be able to respond to their needs, and give them what they need in the personal conversations and in the online communications and so forth. So it's not just this is what it is. It's always adapted to the needs of who we're serving. That's
Mhm.
the hallmark of what we do as Montessorians.
Yes, to bring curiosity, to bring wonder, which are not stagnant. They're energies that are living in they can be, at least to me anyway, that has to be within me,
Mm-hmm.
holding it, and then it's felt outwards, I feel, in the space. And then at least from what I've experienced, holding those things that are more open, those aspects, those qualities, those intentions, the environment, we've prepared it in a certain way where there's freedom, whether it's for the adults to express themselves, to show us who they are, and on their own time. That's again what you all do is very rare. I have to say that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when you're going back to the birth process, and I'm thinking about, reading, and I didn't experience it quite like that. It wasn't that bad, but the women that would be strapped in, put their legs in these
Mm.
stirrups, and then they're given medications if they're not going fast enough. It's like, wow, that, I don't know, it may be the same in hospitals today, but I think that there's a lot more, they're going in the right direction.
Well, and in my area, I would say birth is in the hospitals has regressed about 30 years.
Really?
Yes. From when I started, I was the first birth doula in my area for 12 years back in I don't know, it was a long time ago. And the doctors, they were just these old time docs that were doing breech birth, they were doing twins, they were doing um, births that physicians aren't trained to do anymore. They don't know how to do those. And they would just come in and have their scrubs on, and they'd sit on the bed, and they'd sit back and observe. And however the woman she birthed. And I remember the first birth I attended was with the practice that I worked with for years, and the physician, because they didn't know what I was. Here's this woman coming, and I had this ball. No one had seen a birth ball before. I had a birth ball under my arm and a birthing stool, and I'm coming in, and the nurses are all looking like, what is going on? And then he came in, and he knew a little bit about me. Maybe we had talked, but he said, I just thought it was so sweet. He said, Pam, I was born at home. I was born at home. And it was like just a statement of, she's here with us. And from that moment, things began to shift. But right now, what it's like is, I call it a little bit like Disneyland, where it looks really, really nice, but birth is much more managed than it used to be.
Wow.
And which doesn't mean, I mean, I've been at every kind of experience, I think, that you can imagine with birth, and I have no attitudes or judgments or anything about any of it. With medications, any of that. But I really would hope that families, the parents, can come into a process of where they know what options are and they know what choices are, and then they can move through whatever happens. And at home, if we have to transport in whatever happens, if they have the prepared environment that they've created with their caregivers, then there can be a very empowering experience. Whether it ends up with a cesarean birth, whatever it is, it can be like that. It's a different outcome, but to me, it's more of a, now when I don't go to hospital births anymore, but what I was experienced was a feeling already of, let's anticipate that something is going to go wrong. So that's how we're going to be in the environment. And if I would translate that over to a classroom, what would that be like? And I just thought, I don't want to do this anymore in this way, which, but it all comes down, I mean, the whole thing comes around for us as parents and women and co-parents to learn and to explore and to be creative and to find our way and to be with people that we feel that connection. Well, wherever it is.
Yeah. Wow, Pamela, we could keep talking all day, but I think that we're probably coming to the end of our time for our live stream. It's been such a pleasure to just share stories and talk about all of these things that we both hold so dear. And
yes.
Thank you so much for being a guest today.
Well, you're so welcome. You're so welcome, and it's so good to see you.
Yes. Well, we'll have to do this again.
We will.
We'll get Candace to schedule that later on down the line.
That sounds great.
Okay.
Right.
Everyone, thank you for joining us today.
Yes, thank you.